All right, real progressives. It is Wednesday. It is August 15th. Oh my God, August is half over. I have not had an ounce of summer all summer. But, that's just the way it is. What can you do? You know, Life has a tendency of just going on, as must I. So as tonight we're going to be talking about the FDA. There's actually quite a few things I want to talk about, but initially we're going to be talking about the FDA, the Department of Agriculture. Quite honestly, what we're going to be talking about was going to have corollaries. It's going to have something to do with just about every government agency out there, because what I'm talking about is, at the very least, what I'm talking about is conflicts of interest. Basic, bare bones conflicts of interest. And God knows, with the Trump administration as we understand it right now, there's a shitload of conflicts of interest that we got to be paying attention to. Uh, but it's not just Trump. One of the most important things that we can talk about as a nation right now is that if you're really upset about Trump, by all means, welcome to the conversation. This is how a lot of us got started. But it's not how everyone got started, because things have been shitty for a really, really, really long time. I had I'll call it a discussion to be polite, but it was a bit of an argument. Not a yelling argument, not a screaming argument, but it was an argument nonetheless. Pardon me. Uh, Basically, when I put up this meme, I actually don't have it loaded up right now. Maybe I should have, but it's a graphic that shows how GDP rose with our wages. Our wages went up as GDP went up for about 30 years after World War II. Now, granted, you had to be a white man for that to be true, but generically speaking, as this country produced goods and services, as our national wealth increased after World War II, wages went up. Wages went up, more or less commensurate with how high our GDP was going. And then Nixon took us off the gold standard in 1971, finally off for good, starting in 73. There's a shitload of conflicts of interest that we gotta be paying attention. Pardon me, I don't know exactly how that happened. But so by 73, we're off the gold standard completely. And if you look at that graph, GDP continues to rise, but our wages stagnate. Our wages suddenly no longer rise with GDP. We are still producing. We are still a rich country. We are still producing goods and services. Wealth is being produced, but the people are no longer sharing in its blessings. We are no longer having our wages go up along with goods and services. Why is that? And my friend, said that this was a reflection of the fact that we needed to be on a gold standard. Clearly, it was the gold standard that allowed for our wages to go up with GDP, which I found to be incredibly laughable, completely and utterly laughable, because he totally did not get the point. Okay? Modern monetary theory simply describes the currency. It doesn't tell you what to do about it. It doesn't tell you what to do with it. It tells you how money operates. That's it. Period. Fait accompli. Merci, mon amour. That's it. It tells you where the dollar is born, how it circulates, and where it goes to die. Congress appropriates the funds, thereby creating the currency. It circulates through the economy in a variety of ways, and it dies when it is taxed back. That's it. When you realize that you're no longer constrained to a commodity, when you no longer have to restrain how much money you have in circulation because you only have so much of a particular commodity, in this case gold, when you no longer have that constraint, you are no longer monetarily constrained. You are resource constrained. So what that graph actually shows is not, as GDP and wages go up together and then go off the gold standard, GDP continues to go up, but our wages stagnate. It does not show that the gold standard worked. It shows that the rich, who had been heavily taxed under the gold standard, heavily taxed because we needed revenue, someone had to come up with it, and the rich had it. We didn't. Had to tax the rich. Take us off the gold standard, and the rich, who understand how money works, they went to work. And they stole, and they stole, and they stole. They stole the wealth of a nation. They stole it blind. Their leaders in front of cameras telling us exactly what they're doing, but we are not educated enough to be able to put the pieces together. Because the people who are telling us exactly what they're doing were also telling us that we're still on a gold standard, or at least acting like it. Richard Nixon can be found on video telling us that he is suspending the gold standard. But then you'll have politicians and pundits and all manner of people telling you to your face that we can't afford this program and that program and this program and that program, and everything they say that they can't afford because they don't have the money. It's all programs that would benefit you and me. Then they go after the unions. They bust up the unions. Now no one is able to collectively bargain. Well, not no one, but fewer and fewer people are able to collectively bargain for better wages, for better working conditions. Our standard of living goes down if you measure it simply based upon what can be afforded out of our paychecks. As costs go up, cost of living increases keep going up, GDP keeps going up, but our wages stay the same. We have to keep borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. And that, my friend, is unsustainable. So that graph does not show that the gold standard worked, and going off the gold standard is what ruined the system. Going off the gold standard allowed the people who understand how the system works to steal us blind, to rob us blind. That's what happened. It was not a macroeconomic necessity that if you take us off the gold standard, that we must therefore, as a direct consequence, suffer. No. Someone had to make political decisions to make sure that we suffered. And you want to be kind about it, you want to be generous about it, you can say that they didn't mean for us to be killed or hurt or in any way, cast aside. They just didn't give a shit if any of those things happened so that they could get more and more and more for themselves. It's not that they don't like us, don't love us, don't wish us well. It's just that if it comes a choice between their greed, not their needs, their greed versus our ability to live well, fuck us. To hell with us. And any time that they will say, I'd love to give you Medicare for all, but we just don't have the money. Where are you going to pay for that? We can't do it. Meanwhile, they will drop bomb after bomb after bomb after bomb after bomb all over the world. No less than 7 actual wars that we are directly involved with, either with people with boots on the ground or just simply funding it so that other people can drop the bombs and create the devastations in Palestine, in Syria, in Yemen, on the African continent, you name it. Not to mention the economic desperation that we create in South and Central America. No one ever bothers to find out, where is all the money for these bombs coming from? All these wars that we're engaged in. No one ever asks how you're going to pay for it. You know the song, Edwin Starr. Whoa, good God, how we gonna pay for it? I just don't know. That's not how the fucking song goes, man. How you gonna pay for war? Congress just simply says we're gonna do it. They just say we absolutely positively have to do it. It's national defense. National defense. How could it possibly be national defense? They're an entire world away. It's not national defense if you are the one on offense and then you have to defend yourself against the people who are just trying to fight back and survive. But we make that a national priority. That is a priority that we have made. And I would like to say we made it collectively. But no, decisions are made by those who show up. We had an election in Ohio not that long ago. 12% of their population showed up. Those people made the decisions. We can go back to the 2016 election. We say that Hillary Clinton won the popular vote and Trump got the electoral college, but barely half the country voted. Say what you will about the validity of that system, from voter suppression and people who wanted to vote but couldn't, to voting machine errors. Barely half the country, and not even a full half of those people actually voted for Trump. 25% of the country voted for him, and barely half of those actually wanted him. Decisions are made by those who show up. So at every stage of the game, you must show up. When I talk to people about single-payer healthcare, when I'm talking about MMT and how we can actually get from here to there, and I can show them the failure of the left over the last 40 years, for all their great intentions, every time push comes to shove, they want to tax the rich first. The rich have all the resources. They push back. We lose. They win. We understand the monetary system, and we don't have to bother with them at all. We don't go through them. We go around them, and we win. When I talk to people about this, when I get them to understand how the system works, how it actually fundamentally works, even when the light goes off, and they say, I get it. I get a lot of people say, yeah, but we got to tax the rich. I mean, we got to do that, right? We got to do that, right? And it's like they can't get off of it. Yes, of course we're going to have to tax the rich. That's a given. That's an absolute monumental given. We just simply don't have to do it before we get single-payer healthcare. It should not be conditional. It should not be waiting for single-payer healthcare before. It should not be waiting for single-payer healthcare until we have taxed the rich. Taxing the rich is a moral imperative. They have too much power. They have too much money, and they are doing horrible things with it. They are buying our democracy. They are undermining it. They are creating a plutocracy, an oligarchy. It has to end. But it doesn't have to end before we get single-payer healthcare and federal jobs guarantee and green energy and all the things that we want. We can chew and walk at the same time. We can do both. You want to do them concurrently? Fair enough. But make sure you divorce one from the other. We do not tax them before we spend on the public purpose. If you have to choose which one is going to come first, you must save lives first. That is your first responsibility. That is citizenship 101. You save lives. How many? How about fucking all of them? How about as many as you possibly can, which does not mean as many as you think you can get away with. I think we can maybe, around the edges, do a little bit here and a little bit there, and I'll feel good about that. Fine, you feel good about that. I'll feel pretty fucking shitty. Because you could have done more. You should have done more. And it's not about more effort. The effort that you are currently putting into saving something like the Affordable Care Act, you could take that effort from small effort to large effort. I don't care how much effort you're putting into, but the effort that you are taking could instead be put into getting single-payer healthcare, understanding federal finance, so that we don't have to fight the rich. We simply ignore them. Ignore the rich, force the legislation through, get it done. We'll tax them afterwards. And if you absolutely positively have to do both at the same time, then fair enough. Mount up. Get it done. But don't put pay-fors in the bill for single-payer healthcare or college tuition. I mean, for God's sakes, Bernie Sanders, and I love you. I love you, Bernie. You were my senator for 16 years when I was in Vermont, and I never had to be ashamed of you once. Not once. But your federal jobs guarantee, rather than not your federal, your college tuition, free college tuition, that you wanted to be able to pay for by having Wall Street be taxed on their speculation. There are three things that we use taxes for. First, to drive the currency. Right? Second is to help curb inflation. And third is to curb behaviors. So if we don't like a particular behavior, in this case, we don't like Wall Street speculation. It is actually bad for the economy. It's great when it works, but if it tanks, it can take down a lot of the economy with it. We don't like it. We like these things to be boring and simple. But we don't want to outlaw it. We don't want to be dicks about it. So we're going to increase the tax. Every time you speculate, there will be a tax associated with it. The purpose of the tax is to stop the behavior, to get you to voluntarily, through an involuntary tax, stop the behavior. So what is the point of having that kind of a tax and saying the revenue that we will get from that taxation, we will funnel it into your education? They speculate, we tax, you go to college. Well, what happens when the tax does what it's supposed to do? Let's say we are successful, and let's say that we actually end Wall Street speculation. Well, now you're not going to school. We had a bad behavior, we taxed it, and we used that revenue to be able to give you free college. The tax works, you don't speculate anymore, there's no more revenue. I'm sorry, Junior, you're not going to college. If we write that into the bill, we're setting ourselves up for failure because of our success. It's asinine. And when you realize that Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution mandates, in fact, let's take a look at this. I'm not exactly sure how many people have even looked at the Constitution. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imports, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imports, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. Yada, yada, yada. To coin money, regulate the value thereof, and of foreign coin, and fix the standard of weights and measures. And to regulate commerce with foreign nations, and among the several states, and with the Indian tribes. To borrow money on the credit of the United States. To establish a uniform rule of naturalization, and uniform law on the subject of bankruptcies throughout the United States. So, what are they doing here? They're telling us that they create the currency. Only Congress shall create currency. No one else shall do so. They are telling us what it's going to be worth. Set the weights and measures. For a long time, they said a single US dollar would be worth a certain amount of US gold. They're telling you what the US dollar is worth. When Nixon took us off the gold standard, what is $1 worth? It's worth $1. It is now worth whatever you can buy with it. And they will also tell you that they're going to collect taxes payable only in that currency, which gives us the first rule of currency, of sovereign money. A government with a sovereign currency that can establish a tax and enforce the payment of that tax obligation in that currency. You now need that currency, or you're going to jail. You don't want to go to jail? Pay up in that currency. In this case, the US dollar. So let's just ruminate on this. Why would we pay for free college tuition with a tax that was established, the idea of the tax, the ability to tax, was established to make sure that you would demand their currency. They create it, you must demand it. And the only way to get you to demand it is to make sure that if you don't use it for the one thing you need it for, pay your taxes, you'll go to jail. Maybe they won't send you to jail immediately. They'll start garnishing your wages. They'll confiscate your property. They're going to punish you in some form or another. And you don't want that to happen. So for so long as you have a debt obligation of taxes, you need US dollars. That is demand. That drives the currency. So any tax out there, for so long as the government can enforce it and so long as they do not promise to exchange that money for any other commodity like gold, they don't need your taxes for revenue. It is asinine to put into a bill, I will do X, Y, and Z, and I will pay for it by taking your money that I created and gave to you in the first place. It is asinine. It is completely without merit. We need taxes to drive the currency. We need it to help us fight inflation as one means of fighting inflation. And we need it to utilize it to curb behaviors. In this case, we've been talking about Wall Street speculation. We can talk about cigarette taxes. We can talk about, the tax incentives, for driving electric cars and actual, taxes for driving regular fossil fuel-based cars. Any number of reasons to be able to tax, and it's all important, but none of it is needed for revenue. And we need to get a hold of this. We need to get a hold of this because decisions are made by those who show up. And right now, the people that are showing up don't know what they're doing, or they do, and they don't want us to know. So we have got to get educated. I know a lot of people say, yeah, I understand about MMT. We don't have time to educate people right now. We need Democrats in office. Holy hell, have we not had Democrats in office for the last 40 years? Have they not had control of the entire House of Representatives, the entire Senate, and the United States President at the same time? Have they not had their shot? Have they not demonstrated that they're not interested in giving you what you need or deserve? I'm not saying that is true across the board, but it is true in more than enough areas where it's going to be almost impossible. And we have a whole swath of the population that is ready to fight against people who are trying to show them about MMT because they have been told again and again and again and again and again by politicians and people on TV, all of which bought and paid for by the same oligarchs, that we need your money, we need your money, we need your money. And we got people saying, I would love to have single-payer health care, but unfortunately, I can't afford my taxes to go up. I don't have to pay for your health care. Why am I doing that? Why am I doing that? Why am I doing that? We have to start getting people educated right now. There is a lady out there, Julia Cameron. She wrote a wonderful book called The Artist's Way. She teaches a lot about creativity. The reason I'm bringing this up is because when she gives her seminars and she is trying to get people to understand that you are more than you have given yourself credit for, you are inherently, as a birthright, you are creative, you are this, you are that. And when she gives these discussions, she always gets pushback of some form or another. She's telling people that you can be the person you always wanted to be. It's never too late to start. Never too late to start. And someone will always get me. She tells this story in this book. Someone will always stand up and ask me, are you telling me that, I can actually play piano if I try? And she says, yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you. Do you have any idea how old I'm going to be before I play piano well? And she says, yes, I know exactly how old you'll be. The same age you'll be if you don't start right now. Time moves in one direction and one direction only. There is no time to stand still. There is no time to spend too much time planning. Get a plan, make it quickly, go out and do it. We have to start educating people about modern monetary theory, about how actual federal finance works now. We can't wait until the midterms are over, see who's actually in there, and then push them. We have to start learning about this shit now. We have to start telling people about this now. Why? Because people have already died today that didn't need to. Every day you delay learning about modern monetary theory, every day you delay educating other people and pushing your representatives on it. Every day you delay until a more convenient time, people are dying, and that's on you. Once you understand that it's on you, you have no other choice. You must activate. You must do it. You must do it now. There is no time like the present. I had another argument with a friend of mine, who's getting it, but he's terrified. He's terrified because, whatever the government can give you, they can take away. Are you actually comfortable giving the government all this power? And to this I say, fuck no! I am not comfortable giving government power. But here's the thing, and there's no getting around this, and I wish to God that it were otherwise. Wait a minute. Here we go. We, the people of the United States of America, in order to form a more perfect union. We, the people. So when you say, are you comfortable giving the government this much power? The government does not exist outside you. We, the people, we are the government. I said this before. This is the long game. This is the hard work, the long, sustained effort. Decisions are made by those who show up. And when you recognize that we, the people, it is the U.S. House of Representatives. I am the president of all people. You have a tremendous responsibility. You cannot just simply give government power, because you're not giving it to someone else. You are allowing government to have power, and you are part of that government. Your job is not done once they have been elected. Your job is not ever done. Take breaks, take regular breaks. There are 360 million of us. Some of us are going to have to take breaks, some long breaks, but not too many of us at one time. We have got to be pushing them. Pushing them, pushing them, pushing them. No, I'm not comfortable giving government power. Of course not. I want to give government tools so that they will do the work of the people. And how am I going to make sure they use those tools for the people? I'm going to be paying attention, and I'm going to be getting on the phone with them, and I'm going to be writing them letters, and I'm going to be organizing my friends. And every time they stick so much as a toe out of line, they're going to hear about it. And it's going to scare the living shit out of them. I'll guarantee you that much. We have to get organized now. There's an old expression that says, when you make peaceful revolution difficult, you make violent revolution inevitable. I don't want that. I will never support violence. That's why it's so important to get this done now, while we can, while it's not too late. But, we're here to talk about the FDA. The FDA, the Department of Agriculture. I put a lot of links, to articles and some videos in this video. These are not meant to be exhaustive. This is what I consider to be easily digestible, with maybe one or two exceptions. But should be allowing anyone that wants to look deeper into this, give you a springboard. And I even include some articles from Forbes who don't seem to quibble with the details so much as they try to direct your understanding of the findings. But I wanted to give a different perspective on there as well. So please read the links, check them out, and then go further, because there's so much more to understand. But to begin, I wanted to play this video. It's a short 2-minute video. It'll give you an overview of the kind of thing we're talking about.
Why do the federal dietary guidelines sometimes favor the interests of the food and drug industries over the public's interest in accurate and impartial dietary advice? The first problem may be who's in charge. Potential conflicts of interest at the USDA. The mandate of the U.S. Department of Agriculture is to promote agribusiness, but also give dietary advice. So no conflict when it comes to fruits and veggies. But what about the stuff we're supposed to eat less of, though? How can they say, eat less meat and sugar, for example, and still fulfill their primary mission to promote these products? That may be why the eat more messaging recommendations are clear. Increase fruit and vegetable intake, period. But when it comes to eat less messaging, recommendations resort to speaking in code, talking only about biochemical components, a reduced intake of solid fats, major sources of saturated and trans fatty acids. But what does that translate into in terms of actual foods to avoid? Let's break the code. Reduce intake of saturated fat means reduce intake of cheese, ice cream, pizza, and chicken. And reduce trans fats means reduce intake of cakes, cookies, animal products, and margarine. But they can't just come out and say that. In their letter to the Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee, the National Pork Board, in what almost sounds like a threat, cautions the committee against making any decisions which would limit the ability of Americans to choose more pork.
So, again, the first conflict of interest I want to bring to mind for the FDA, which you'll also be able to find in other departments of the United States government, is a conflict of interest of, in this case, mission statements. We want to be able to promote agribusiness. And so it doesn't seem to matter what you put in the ground. If it goes in the ground, they will want to support it. Unless, of course, they've found a way to make it illegal. They're not going to do that for marijuana, at least not yet. Poppy seeds, obviously, for things that clearly come into conflict with, big pharma. But their first thing is, if it's agriculture, let's support it. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter if it's good for you. We don't care. And then on the flip side, then they want to be able to support nutrition. And there was an article out there. You can find it. I think it was a last minute thing. I'm not sure if I put it on there. I'll put it on afterwards. Talking about the FDA and eggs, and how the egg industry, the portion that they got funding from the FDA, for supporting their advertising. Because eggs must be advertised. Eggs, meat, and dairy must be advertised. No one understands anything about meat, dairy, and eggs. I don't even know that they exist unless the FDA is telling me to go out and buy more. But if you're going to use the federal government's money, technically you're not allowed to lie. So there's a big article about how the egg industry came up with a commercial to say it's a nutritious food. Well, no, you can't say it's nutritious. It's too high in cholesterol and saturated fats. Then they want to say it's the part of a good nutritious breakfast. No, they're nutritious, and we're not saying it's good for you. You have to read the article. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And when the egg industry, after basically being told that their product sucks and we can't recommend it to people to eat for good, healthy consumption, come up with a nice feel-good ad that doesn't say anything about health, the FDA actually pats them on the back and says, good for you. You came up with every loophole necessary to be able to take our money. But that's the thing. Is the government supposed to be in bed with business, or is it supposed to be protecting the people? And it's clear that the federal government has decided, because again, decisions are made by those who show up. So if you want them to make a different decision, you have to show up. But the federal government, as it stands, has made the decision to say that business is good. All business is good, and we must make sure that we don't do anything to upset the delicate balance of business. The market will take care of everyone. Bull fucking shit. The market will not take care of everyone. The market only cares about what's profitable. Stephanie Kelton was just recently on CNN, GPS with, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name, Fareed. But basically he said, you want to do a federal job guarantee, does that not fly in the face of capitalism? That the market is supposed to find out what is needed, what people are demanding, and fill that need. And if you give everyone a job, does that not compete with them? And it just blew my mind. I mean, Stephanie Kelton did a great answer. By all means, look it up. She said it wasn't competing with business. It's good for business because it allows for people to still be employed when the private sector has decided that they are not needed. That you people are not important. We haven't found a need for you. Not that there aren't needs out there. This is the point. A federal job guarantee identifies areas of the culture, of the society, that says this needs to get done. It's not profitable to do it. That's why private is a business and industry is not taking care of it. Private business only identifies a need that is profitable. That is not the same thing as having identified a genuine, bona fide need. You can't make money off of it does not mean that it's not important, that it needs to get done. Or even at the very least, that it would be a good thing if it were done. Clearly, we can live without a lot of things. But it would be better for society if they were done. So let's get them done. And you're not going to do it, private industry? Fine, the federal government will pick up the bill. And we will employ people to do that. And then as you, the private sector, find more work for more people, you will have a buffer stock of employed people who will be quite happy to join your ranks. Because we all know that you don't like the unemployed. You don't like hiring the unemployed. Well, fine. There will be no more unemployed. Everyone will have had a job. But the point is that private industry, capitalism, does not care about you. It does not identify needs unless that need is someone else's desire for profit. That is the need that is trying to be filled here, not your need. If they actually gave a shit about your need, half the shit that gets produced wouldn't get produced because you don't need it, you want it. And there's nothing against wanting something. But there is everything against instituting a system, codifying it into law, canonizing it, to say that only it has all the answers. And how we know that's bullshit? Because there are millions of people starving, millions of people unemployed and homeless and bankrupt because of medical bills. You think capitalism is so wonderful? This is the result of capitalism. It is not the mansion on the hill. It is the slums surrounding the hillsides. So you must decide what you want, what kind of society you want to build, and what are you willing to put up with in your name. All those bombs they drop, they're in your name. They've got your signature all over it. Every homeless person you trip over, that's on you. You are allowing it. And I know that is a horrible charge. I know that is difficult to be able to get your brain around. But if you're not fighting against it, then what good is it? What good is your resistance of Trump if you are willing to put someone else in his place who will also not do anything to fix the problem? You want to feel good about yourself for having gotten rid of someone when it should never have happened in the first place. All these stories you'll ever hear about how this employer found out that one of his employees was in a really bad way, and gave him X, amount of dollars to fix it. Found out one is walking 5 miles each way to work, and so he got him a secondhand car. You won't have to look very far to find stories like that, and you're going to be tempted to feel really good about that story. It shows that there are good people out there. And that's true. But it's also true that those stories represent the failure of our economy, of our society, to make sure that someone never fell into that kind of a situation in the first place. Why is this guy walking 5 miles each way? Why don't we have public transportation? Why was it so difficult for him to be able to get a car on his own? Why was it so difficult for him? Things don't need to be easy all the way through life. Of course, there's going to be challenges. But we have canonized challenges and canonized an entire system that is cannibalizing our own citizens. And we have to stop. And when we think about the FDA, when we think about, the Department of Agriculture and all the different conflicts of interest that we have out there, And our government is actively siding with people that don't care about us. And who is the government? We the people. Do we not love ourselves? Do we not care enough about our families and our friends and ourselves to be able to stand up in one voice and say, no more? I refuse to add fuel to that fire. I will pursue something better. I will not take one more ounce of your poison just to make you feel better. If you're not standing with me, why not? I'm telling you, modern monetary theory allows us to have the things that we need concurrently. But all of it is dependent upon our participation. Modern monetary theory has allowed us to have 7 concurrent wars all at once. You see, we don't need to utilize modern monetary theory. It's being utilized. It is the fact of money creation, circulation, and death. The problem is that the oligarchs know about it and they know how to work the system in their favor, and we don't. They are organized, we're not. The time is now. Technically, the time was about 40 years ago. But let's celebrate the fact that we're coming to the party at all. It's time. So when you talk about conflicts of interest, when you talk about nutrition and health and the dual mandate of the FDA, of the Department of Agriculture, to be able to support agri-farming, but also to be able to look after our interest, our health. Well, what the fuck is this? This is a can of Coke. And right next to that, you can see its nutritional facts. You can see that it doesn't have any fat, but it does have 45 milligrams of sodium, showing 2% of our daily value, of our needs. 2%. Total carbohydrates, 39 grams, 13%. But sugars, we don't get to see how much of our percent daily value that is. Okay. Well, part of that is because, the Department of Agriculture has not identified sugar as a substance that, you only need so much of. But there are many, many institutions, of which this is one, who will tell you what is a good amount of sugar to be done. And of course, there's the difference between natural sugar that is found within fruits and vegetables and other sources versus added sugar. The extra sugar that the food industry puts in your food to make you crave it, to make it like crack. And you can see here that as an average, there's no official numbers, but this was a pretty decent average. Men, 37.5 grams. Women, 25 grams. Basically. Some places a little bit more, some places a little bit less. But it all falls pretty much within that boundary. Now let's take a look at that again. 39 grams of sugar. Whether you're a man or a woman, you have 1 can of Coke, and you have had more sugar than you are supposed to have in your entire day. Look at that. Serving size, 1 can. Servings per container, 1. They expect you're going to drink the whole fucking thing. And you will have already taken more sugar into your system than you're supposed to. Now look, it doesn't tell you what your percent daily value is, but assuming, 38 grams, all Americans everywhere, they may not know how much sugar you're supposed to have, but they sure as shit know what 100% is. They sure as shit know what 105%, 110%, 150% is. They know. What do you think? Okay, that's just a can of Coke. No big deal. I'm sure other things are just fine. Okay. Here's Special K. Special K has, for my entire lifetime, Special K has been has been presented to be healthy. So here we have Special K, 12-gram protein meal bars. That's nice. But one serving, which is one bar, gets you 14 grams of sugar. 14 grams of sugar. Depending upon who you are, man or woman, you're at least 50%, of your sugar in one bar. Now take a look at the rest of the food that you're shoving down your mouth for the rest of the day. Most Americans are consuming so much sugar. And you want to say that it's all the junk food that we know is bad for us and we're not supposed to be having it. But that was supposed to be healthy. That was advertised as being healthy. And it has at least 50%, 25 to 50% of your sugar intake for the entire day. This is fucked up. And they want to blame us when we get sick. They want to be able to go in and write laws that are going to be great for people that have found a way to monetize our pain and suffering. The big business, the ones with the money, the ones that were able to get there first, they were able to get themselves organized, they were able to get to government first, and they set the rules. We can sell you this shit. We can sell it to you, and we're going to make sure that it's legal to do so. And when you get sick, it's going to be your fault because you should have known better. You should have known better. It's your fault. You don't deserve health care because you did not do things the right way. It's fucking disgusting what they do. And here is a wonderful way. Let me see if I can find this one. To show you just exactly how bad this is. There we go. This guy, Michael Taylor, former vice president for Monsanto. Hi, I'm Michael Taylor, deputy commissioner of the FDA. Are you kidding me? We're talking about people that work for the very institutions that they're supposed to be regulating. Now look at this guy. First, he's at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Then he's with the Department of Agriculture. Then he goes to Monsanto. After he set up things for big business, then he goes to work for big business, and then he goes back into government. From government into the private industry they're supposed to regulate, then back into government, overseeing the same industry. This is just one example. You are not going to have to look very far to find dozens of examples. Dozens of examples. This is what we have allowed to happen. This is what our government has allowed itself to become. And they will say that, well, we need people to work in these departments that have experience, that know how this system works. And I call bullshit. You can have them, on an advisory board. You can say, I need to have you come in and we're going to have a panel. It's going to be transparent. But we are the scientists. We are the scientists and we are the politicians. We are the people. And we can get scientists who know how it works without having to have scientists who have already been sullied with your money. Why? Because we are the government and we create the currency. And we can hire the best and the brightest. And we can pay them. And yes, we can compete with you, private industry, for the purposes of making sure that you are properly regulated. You can still make a great living. You can still do great things. You can still make a profit. But you cannot influence policy. The very idea is anathema. The Millback Quarterly recently did a study, showing all the different conflicts of interest. within the FDA. And they showed members with financial ties to the company sponsoring the drug under review voted in favor of approval 63% of the time. Members without financial ties had a 52% chance of favoring approval. But committee members who served on a sponsoring firm's advisory board had a whopping 84% chance of voting in favor of the drug's approval. So any type of financial tie, any type of financial incentive, I'm sorry, has to go away. The risk is not worth the benefit. We have a huge, massive health industry and a massive need for it because we have rampant diabetes in children, type 2 onset diabetes in children, obesity. We have high infant mortalities. We have a host of issues, from cancers to heart disease to the number 3 killer in the nation, medical errors, because of for-profit healthcare. If we're going to successfully combat this, whether we get single payer tomorrow or not, we are going to have to address the issue of conflicts of interest in the areas of government that are supposed to be looking out for our best interest. We the people, not we the oligarchs, not we the rich and gentrified, we the people. And they have been taking advantage of us, they have been raping us, they have allowed us to die for 40 years. And it has to stop. There's no other way to look at it. It has to stop. The government is filled with people. Filled with people. And there are, I like to say, there's thousands of people that are paid to talk about the problem. But there's no one paid to fix the problem. And that is the problem. We got all manner of people on television, all manner of people in our state houses and in Washington, and they love to talk about the problem. But none of them really want to solve the problem. So it's going to be up to us. We have to solve the problem. Now, I know I always say love wins, and it does. But love has to be chosen. And love has not been chosen. In government, they choose greed. They choose money. They're always finding ways to screw the little guy and make sure that the rich get even richer. And you're going to be tempted to use anger and hate as your weapons of choice to be able to combat that. And I do not envy you that. That is a hard road to hoe. That is really hard. Hate and anger is a cancer. It's almost impossible to get out of. But you got to try. You got to try. You got to find a way. Because hate and anger as weapons will always hurt more than it needs to. And it's mostly going to hurt yourself. You won't sleep well at night. And you're almost certainly not going to get what you want. And I got people out there saying that, protests, it's too violent. It's all these protests, it's too disruptive. It's too disruptive. Can't we just have peace? And I say no, because you're confusing peace with quiet. You don't want peace. You want people to shut up. And in no way, shape, or form is that going to work. We're not going to get true peace if we don't have justice. Just ask the working poor. Just ask the homeless. Is there justice in this country? Ask people of color. Ask Native Americans. Ask people in Palestine, in South and Central America. Ask them in Syria. Ask them if there is actual justice. No, it has to be chosen. And you cannot get actual justice if you don't have love. No love, no justice. Because love is the thing that's going to make you seek actual justice. Love will get you what you want. Hate and anger will get you revenge. All the people that want to get rid of Trump right now, just any blue will do. Just put in a Democrat. I don't care. That's fear. That's hate. That's anger. That's revenge. They did this to us. God damn it, we must do it to them. No. This is bigger than simply saying an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. Of course it does. But do you want what you want? Do you actually want single-payer health care? Do you want green energy? Do you want to make sure that we have an environment that will be inhabitable for your children? Would you like your children to be able to go and see Florida, let alone live there? To live on the East Coast or West Coast? Would you like that to be a possibility? Would you like there to be less crime? Well, you're not going to get that unless we can eradicate poverty. Would you like us to have fewer school shootings? Well, you're going to have to not only do something about the guns, which we absolutely have to do. There is no right to an assault weapon. You have no right to an assault weapon. Every Supreme Court decision, including Heller, affirmed that you do not have the right to an assault weapon. But in addition to getting rid of the guns, you're going to have to be able to deal with poverty. You're going to have to deal with mental illness. You're going to have to deal with a laundry list of things. All of it must be addressed. You are going to be working your ass off for a very long time. And the only thing I can promise you is that it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it. You'll be able to sleep at night, and at the end of the struggle, you'll be amazed at the society we will have created together. I love you guys. I'll be back next week. Stay tuned for Savage Joy. She's got Tim Canova on. It's going to be a great show. Take care of one another. Take care of yourself. I'll see you soon. Good night.